All right, welcome to Blessed and Boys, a podcast about football mostly, from one Saints fan and one Cowboys fan, one fan of who dat and one fan of dat win. We're here to give weekly takes, game recaps, bad betting picks, game previews, and Seinfeld references.
Each week, the podcast will be brought to you by Saints Cowboys Immaculate Grid Match. For those of you unfamiliar with the game from Pro Football Reference, this is a player who played for both the Saints and the Cowboys at some point in their career. This week, in honor of his upset victory over the Raiders, this week's episode is brought to you by Andy Dalton. Cowboys 2020, Saints 2022, 2,000 yards passer in both seasons. So not quite enough to qualify for the 3,000 yard category. My name is Paul, the Saints fan,
And I'm Brandon, the Cowboys fan.
and we're your host. Now it's go time.
Yeah, that's it. It's go time. Let's see you live that.
Mr. Mandelbaum, please.
It's go time.
This one's for you, Pop. It's go time.
It's go time.
You've been married 3 times.
That's it! It's go time!
It's go time.
All right, Paul. So before we get into, talking about this week's game, talking about the recaps from this week, let's just kind of take a second to go back and talk about what we watched this week. So, I was traveling this week, went to see some family, so I didn't have a chance to watch much of the college slate. I did end up turning Tennessee OU on. Always happy to see OU get a loss. Uh, far, as far as I kind of wish that they had like run the score up a little. It seemed like they got a lead and then um, just kind of held on to it. They weren't trying to blow the game open like I really wish they had, which I actually kind of expected from Heupel, just based on the fact that it seemed like he was still probably a little bit bitter about the way things left there. He played for OU, got hired by
Right.
Bob Stoops, was the
Yeah.
offensive coordinator. And I think kind of expected, right, to be the heir apparent to Bob Stoops eventually.
Right. Yep.
So you got to figure that he kind of wanted to go in there and put on a show. So I expected him to run up the score a little. And I don't know if that was just like he took his foot off the gas or if OU just like eventually figured something out. Um, but I was a little bit disappointed on that. So what'd you watch in terms of college football this weekend?
Yeah, so I actually missed out on Tennessee OU, but I did watch, for my money, the best college game of the year so far, which is Michigan USC. Um, just a real like crazy last quarter and a half, I'd say. Michigan's up 14-3 at half. USC scores, it's 14-10. And then there's this weird sequence where like uh Michigan where USC is driving, Michigan causes a fumble. Big boy on the Michigan defensive line picks it up. He starts to rumble, rumble, rumble down the field, and the USC, I forget, it was a wide receiver, running back, just basically comes up and takes the ball from him.
Just
And
like
so,
just like
yeah,
strips it out.
just strips it out. It was like, for if you're a Saints fan listening, it was like when Robert Meacham did that to LaRon Landry when this is back in the '09 season where Saints were playing the Washington football team. Landry made an interception and Robert Meacham just goes up and just grabs the ball from him and so that was the same thing here. USC proceeds to go down the field. They score on a beautiful pass, beautifully executed pass by the quarterback, Miller, I believe is his name. Um, and then I forget what there was something. Man, I should have written them all down. But I mean, it was really. And Michigan ends up coming back and winning the game after. I think they had a long run there at the end, and that was yeah. It was for my like I said, for my money. I haven't watched a lot of college football. Um, I'll probably ramp it up here in probably in October. But yeah, it was. I have them on. Like I have because I have YouTube TV, so I can do the multi-view, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the NFL. But yeah, it was like I said, for my money, it was the best college game I saw
So
this year.
USC got its welcome into the Big Ten, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Right.
that was their first. Was it their first? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I believe it was their first.
I think that's right. But you're right. We're kind of getting into we had a few games to start the season that were like big college football matchups, but then
Right.
we kind of hit the slate where the part of the schedule where it's, you're playing like Texas is playing, UT,
UL Monroe. Yeah.
yeah, UL Monroe. And so like now we're about to like this week we got Georgia Alabama coming up, which will be a great
Yeah.
matchup, I think. Um,
Uh, your Longhorns get their welcome to the SEC
yeah, we'll see how
against
that goes.
against Mississippi State. Whoop.
Well, at least we got Mississippi State, and they are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott is not walking through that door.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
walking through
Not
another door.
not this week. Neither is Mike Leach. Rest in
Yeah.
peace.
Speaking
So
of Robert Meacham, great callback. Robert Meacham played for the Saints and the San Diego Chargers,
yep.
two teams which also Billy Joe Tolliver played for.
Correct. He did. Yeah.
All right, so for NFL, got a lot of unfortunates here. I watched the Eagles
Yeah.
Saints game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Then I
Well,
watched the Cowboys Ravens game, unfortunately.
you
Watched
both of our teams were victims to birds of prey.
they were. It was not a good week for us. Um, and then I watched the Falcons Chiefs game Sunday night. And that's one I'd kind of like to get into a little. I don't remember if I didn't follow it or I was watching it along at my parents'
Yeah.
place, and so
I,
it's
I kept up with it pretty good for about the first half, and then I think I either dozed off and woke up, and it was right towards the end of the game, right when the Falcons lost it on a fourth down. Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah. And so
Yeah.
they kept the thing is like Atlanta the whole game was kind of trying to get that stretch run game going. Like
Mm,
I guess kind of like the Saints did against the Eagles. You're trying to
yep.
get those stretch
Yep.
runs wide. You're trying to get Bijan out
Yep.
wide um against the
Which
Chiefs and
makes that would make sense because Zach Robinson is from the McVay tree, which is the
right.
Shanahan tree, which so yeah, it's that wide zone running game. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're trying to do that and it hasn't worked all night. And so they get to third and short. They run a stretch run.
Hmm.
That doesn't work.
Yep.
So Galaxy Brain, let's run this again. Shocker, it does not work again.
If it
And
didn't, this is
it
gonna
didn't,
work. Damn it, we're gonna
yeah,
make this work.
eventually. So I guess the coach is going on do theory there, right? He's just trying to
Right.
pull, he's just trying to say, eventually Bijan's going to break one.
Right.
That doesn't work. So I watched that game and the Chiefs are, they kind of morphed into this, like they still have Patrick Mahomes and they
Right.
still, when they need a drive, they can get it. Like Andy Reid, but they're more in terms of like especially the regular season, they've grown into more like a conservative team.
Yep.
Teams are playing that like too high coverage against them. They're working short passes to Rashi Rice instead of like Mahomes. The Xavier Worthy stuff was great, especially for my fantasy team week one.
Right.
Like
Long
it's
Longhorn legend Xavier Worthy.
yes,
Yes. Yeah.
Longhorn legend, record setter. But they're just
Fastest man at the combine. Yep. Yep.
right. And so like but they don't rely on that big play offense like they were several years ago.
Right.
They're gonna kind of grind it out. And I think a lot of that is just built toward we're gonna win games the
S-
way we want. And then
So
or
yeah, so I picked up in the draft in my fantasy league I had Pacheco because I kind of thought that's where they were kind of heading to your point is like they're going to be a more grinded out kind of team. Of course, Pacheco gets hurt week two or whatever it was. Now
right.
he's on IR. But now they've got Carson Steele, which is like classic football name. Like,
Yes. That's and
but
he's like technically a fullback, right?
he's yeah,
Technically,
he's the Mike Allstott. He's kind of the Mike Allstott of that team. Yeah. I mean,
Mike
he's
Allstott, Peyton Hillis.
yeah, Peyton Hillis, yeah, the yeah, white guy who plays fullback, but they run him at tailback. Yeah. So
Right.
and he doesn't go well now the only difference is Allstott would run people over. Steele doesn't really run people over. He kind of somebody just I think I heard somebody describing today as like he gets hit and he's going down. Like he's not um
He's not Marion Barber out here, right?
no, he's not cowboy legend Marion Barber,
Yeah.
yeah. No, look, I think yeah, I think the Chiefs are kind of finding ways to win. I've put them in and I'm not the first one to say this week or this season. I'm putting them in kind of that Patriots category of like there was a time where if the Patriots are playing, you'd ask yourself, okay, Belichick's still the coach, Brady's still the quarterback. They got a chance. And that's
Hmm.
kind of what they are now. They're like Reed's the coach, Mahomes is the quarterback. They've got a chance. And Spagnuolo uh has that defense playing pretty well.
Hmm.
Let me look up while we're talking. Let me see how they that I don't think they've given up many points
Right.
this year. I know they're but at the same token they're a couple plays away from possibly being 0 and 3, 1 and 2
Right.
at least. So
Yeah, the Ravens
uh
had that one. The Ravens had that one play
yeah. Yeah, I
to
mean
they they
likely. Yeah.
they lost by a toe.
Yeah, if Likely's foot size was like a little bit smaller, maybe that goes another way.
Right.
But yeah, I think look, they're just trying to get to the postseason, I
Hmm.
think, at this point. They're just to your point, like they're trying to just if we can get to December, January, get to the postseason, and they showed it last year, like it doesn't matter. They'll go on the road, beat Baltimore, beat Buffalo, they don't care.
Hmm.
So as long as they're healthy, in which, health is obviously a premium in the league. I can when we talk about my team in a little bit, we'll
Well, yeah,
we'll
we'll get
we'll,
into that.
we'll get into that. But yeah, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be all right. But the Saints will see them next week on Monday night. So
Yeah, and you talked about the Patriots, and that was like the thing is like the Patriots would always have these games early in the season where they would like there was one year they got blown out by the Chiefs.
right,
Um, but like they all the players always talked about Belichick during those first 4 weeks. What he's doing is like he's experimenting with his defense. He's trying to figure out things that work. So it's not you're trying to figure out what works in those first weeks. You're just trying to
yep,
get to the postseason, and if you can do that, you're going to be
yeah. And also, again, I'm not the first person to say this, but with the shortened preseason now, you're only playing 3 games. These first couple weeks are basically preseason extended.
hmm
And we've seen that with some teams. I feel like
the Cowboys.
the Saints. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like these next couple weeks we'll start to see, okay, who are these teams really? Like who really are and we can talk about that too in a little bit when we get to another segment. But just to put a button on the Chiefs here, they've given up 20, 25, and 17.
Okay. So,
And I mean, look, the Ravens offense is good. Bengals
hmm
offense, pretty good.
right.
Falcons offense has weapons. I mean, I I think they're going to be a going concern. Any other NFL games you want to?
Um, I don't know if you want to get to this right now, but
Sure.
I mean, the Monday night games are
I'm
where are you on Trevor Lawrence right now?
so I'm going to be honest. I kind of got. I don't want to say I got footballed out, but like I was just worn down Monday night. So started watching Bills Jags. I have Josh Allen as my fantasy quarterback. After about the first quarter, I was like, I'm good. Especially when he threw a touchdown to my fantasy tight end Kincaid. So
Hmm.
it's like, all right, we're good. I also have Keon Coleman on my team, but I didn't start him this week.
Yeah.
But um, I did,
Probably any Bills offensive player that you
yeah,
started was probably pretty good, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, if any of these guys. Um, I did not watch. I don't think I watched a minute of Bengals Commanders. I saw the highlights, and
Hmm.
obviously, and I was kind of high on the Commanders coming into the season. I thought that they could be like one of those sneaky. Not maybe not make the playoffs, but just be a team that like gives people fits
They're
because I
going to be
thought that
pesky, right?
pesky. Yeah, yeah. Um, I thought Daniels was kind of the real deal. And I mean, look, 21 at 23 or whatever he was the other night. And look, I'm not saying he's going to replicate that every week, but I mean, they've obviously got something now. Eckler is hurt. I don't
Hmm.
know if you saw that today.
Yeah.
He's not going to play this weekend against the Cardinals,
They
but
still got Brian Robinson though, and he's like
still
a
got Brian
serviceable.
Robinson. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Terry McLaurin is hell of a receiver,
Hmm.
and I feel like I- they're going to give people some. They're going to, like I said, they're going to get. So speaking to you as someone who's in the NFC East, you know, the Washington football team's not an automatic W, unlike another team in that division that we might talk about later.
Hey, well, ask the Browns about that.
That's true. That's
Uh,
true. That's true.
Um,
For me, if you want me to go through the games I watched real quick, so again, I have the multi-view, got a
mhm.
Sunday ticket. So obviously had the Eagles Saints, paid attention to that a good bit. Had Vikings Texans. That was a little bit of surprise. I
That was
thought
my upset pick for the week, actually.
you had Vikings over Texans.
I did. I
Yeah.
had just because
So
I think
right. Go ahead.
the so so Flores has been really good. So I mean they had some success last year. They added some pieces, I think, this year in terms of personnel. And then I think he just kind of ramped up what he was doing.
Yep.
I was listening to the Athletic Football Show, and
Hmm.
I can't remember if it was Robert Mays or Derek Klassen, but one of them said like a lot of times what um like Stroud is great, but a lot of times when he's making kind of throws out to the flats is he won't necessarily read it. He'll kind of like make an assumption that of what's going to
Right.
happen, and that can get you in trouble, especially
Yep.
against the guy who, knows how to kind of mix up coverages. He's going to put linebackers like double mug the linebackers so you don't know who's coming, and then just sort of mix things up. And so I thought that could probably give them trouble. Um, I didn't really see any of the game, but I know like there were some moments where they just kind of missed some stuff. He had like a tip ball
Yep.
interception that kind of
Yep.
went against them. Um, but it just seems like O'Connell seems like the real deal offensive coordinator. Like he's going to get the best out of his players, whether that's like we
Yeah.
saw what he got out of Kirk Cousins. Like he was able to put together a really good offense with that and some. You've got Justin Jefferson. He's getting the best out of Sam Darnold, and so he's able to like kind of build the pieces. So you think that offense will be fine. I know the Texans added a bunch of defensive players in the offseason. They've got a guy who I think is a great coach.
Is Daniil
D'Amico
Hunter
Ryans. Yeah,
is Daniil
Daniil,
Hunter playing? Is he playing? Or
I
is he
think
suspended?
so.
Wasn't he
Ooh,
suspended?
that's a good question. Well,
Because I remember that. I mean, obviously I picked him up, obviously. But I thought I remember hearing that he's suspended. While you're looking that up real quick, just to on your point about the Vikings defense,
hmm
they've given up 6 points, 17 points, and 7 points. Now the first week was the Giants, so obviously
Take that with a
caveat,
grain of salt.
grain of salt. But to beat the 49ers and hold them to 17, I know McCaffrey wasn't playing,
Yeah, but
and I
still, that's a
think
great
Debo
offense.
didn't Debo get hurt that game, or
He
he wasn't
did. He
playing it?
did. He
Yeah.
did because I think that's the game he got hurt in.
Yeah, and then to hold the Texans to 7 points. I know Mixon wasn't playing, but still, I mean, like Flores, look, all the Tua stuff aside, I know that became a thing
hmm
earlier in the season about how he handled the when he was a coach at the with the Dolphins. I saw it in person in 2020. He was coaching the Dolphins. They came to play the Saints. Now, granted, that was the game that Ian Book started because everybody had COVID, but all I mean, man can coach defense. Like, and to your point
Absolutely.
about O'Connell, I think O'Connell's my front runner for coach of the year.
I mean, if
It's
they keep this rolling,
yeah,
it's hard to pick against them, right?
they
Okay,
got a
so
big they got a big one this week, and we'll talk about that later. But go ahead with your
yeah, it does look like Daniil Hunter's played. So he had
okay,
two combined tackles, one solo, one assist,
okay.
one tackle for loss, and two QB hits in the
Am I
game against
a-
Minnesota.
am I is it my am I misremembered? Wasn't he not suspended though for a game or two?
I'm
Maybe
guessing
maybe
he's
not.
played
I
all
don't know.
3 games, so it looks like he's if he was suspended, he got it appealed, and
Yeah,
um,
Daniil Hunter. I'll look it up. Other game I watched. So in my four, so I had that. The other game I watched was Steelers Chargers, which was as advertised.
bloody and ugly and
They
just a rock fight.
they exchanged paint for sure. I mean, it was um another Coach of the Year candidate for me is Tomlin. I mean,
He just
like
continues to the guy doesn't have a
I
losing
mean,
record. He's a solid coach. I mean,
and I texted you last week. Like, I think he might be the best coach in the NFL.
he
I mean,
he
like. I mean, you look at what he's doing. I mean, and give Arthur Smith credit too for what he's
mhm.
getting out of Justin Fields. They're not asking him there. It gives me very much 02 Bucks with Brad Johnson, 2000 Ravens with Trent Dilfer vibes. They know they have a good defense, and they do. They have, I mean, TJ Watt, all those guys. And they're like, "Look, Justin, just don't lose the game. Like
Hmm.
that's all we need you to do." And by the way, Russell Wilson, you ain't playing them. You you you
You're
your
done.
time. Yeah, you're done. You might be traded to the Dolphins here. I heard that rumor drop this week, but yeah, that was a good game. Chargers, it was a tough loss. They lose both their tackles in that game. Joe
Hmm.
Alt, who was like, there were people talking about Joe Alt for Rookie of the Year because I mean
No
in his
pressures
three game
allowed, right?
no pressures even against TJ Watt in that game. And then he goes out of the game, and then TJ Watt gets a sack, which was good for me because I had that on underdog fantasy pick. But and then Rashawn Slater's hurt. I know obviously Herbert is hurt as well.
Yeah, I've got a question about whether or not he starts this week. I've been trying to keep up with that because
I just read something while we were uh, getting set up here. He wants to play. Apparently, it's a high ankle sprain. Look, I doubt Harbaugh's going to let him play if it's high ankle sprain.
yeah, you're
They're
trying to you're trying to think long term in that situation.
they're gonna be doing the Heineke, I think, in that scenario. And J.K. Dobbins, you better get ready because you're gonna be running the ball. You're gonna be running the ball a good bit.
What's his over under on number of carries here?
I think I took did. Oh no, I didn't take it. That wasn't one of my that one I did it last week, but it wasn't this week. We'll look while we get that up. And then the last game I was watching, Titans Packers, Malik Willis revenge game. Beautiful
Dude,
thing to see.
the Mayo quarterback continues to astound everybody with his boneheaded plays.
Okay, don't laugh at me. The Tennessee Titans could be 3-0, legitimately. Will Levis has given maybe not this game. Okay, I'll because the Packers did outscore him,
Hmm.
but like the week one against the Bears, Levis throws the game away. Week two against the Jets, they lose by 7, and he had a pick six in that game. So I mean, you're looking at a team that very easily could be a 2-1.
Right.
Um,
Well, they've got a
I
great deep like their defense
yeah,
is fantastic.
and they can run the ball. Cowboys legend Tony Pollard,
That's right. Memphis
you know,
legend as
Memphis
well.
legend Tony
Yeah.
Pollard. Yeah, I mean, and D Hop still has something in him. I mean, he made a play the other day against the Packers where it's like he just boxed the guy out. And
They've still got Calvin Ridley. Like they're
Calvin Ridley, yeah,
Mhm.
Traylon Burks, I think is still playing, but I don't know how.
And they've got
Excuse me, how good he's doing.
Tajay Spears is kind of a like the
Tulane
another
legend,
yeah,
Tyjae Spears, yeah.
they've got two really good running backs, both out of the American
I
Athletic Conference, right?
Yeah, represent the Tulane. By the way, told the Pac-12 no, thank you. I think
That's
they
what Memphis did too. They
and
said
Memphis did as well,
yeah, I think the exit bill for getting out of the AAC was a little too steep for those teams.
probably.
So,
Yeah, so that was my four view there. I did watch a little bit of the boys against the Ravens.
did you watch
Game looked
the good part or the bad part?
well. I was going to say the game looked a little familiar. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, so other teams are running the ball against the Cowboys as well, not just the Saints.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we'll get into. It's like we talked about the kind of like the extended preseason. It's like
Yeah,
they look great against Cleveland, who had nothing, but like the I think the video clips that I saw, and I think this is one of the things like we can talk about this, but like the Lamar Jackson is what 21-1 now against the NFC, and the fact is
yep.
like
Do
the
you know who? Sorry, do you know who his one loss is against?
yes, it's Daniel Jones and the Giants.
Yep. Talk about
The
bizarro
other
world.
athletic the
Danny
athletic quarterback,
Dimes.
Danny Dimes.
Danny Dimes.
But it's just one of those things where like if you don't see him very often, there's no way to like actually
Right.
prepare for that guy, right?
I
And
mean,
so
I'm guessing they had Trey Lance run the scout team,
yeah,
but
Trey
even
Lance.
but like Trey Lance is not Lamar
No,
Jackson. Like
no. Well, maybe they had Cooper. I hope they didn't have Cooper Rush
or
running the
Cooper,
scout
yeah.
team. Yeah, if that's what you got, then you're in real trouble. So like that's hard to prepare for, but it also
Yeah.
like I was watching some video clips and kind of breakdowns on the situation on kind of the game film, and it looked like it was a combination of like they show some plays where like Donovan Wilson is like filling the wrong gap and immediately
Yeah.
like opening up running lanes. You got the way that they're running it is like a scrape exchange where Micah is supposed to like crash down and then you're having the inside linebacker fill outside. the inside
Mm,
linebacker. So Mike is doing what he's supposed to do and crashing down
just
to
yeah,
the running back, but
Ju-
your inside
yeah.
linebacker who
That
is like too slow getting back out to cover him, and so
yeah. Saints had a similar issue on a run the other day against the Eagles. Pete Warner just completely flatlined a guy, but there was nobody behind him, so
mhm.
Saquon just took
Is
off.
that
Like,
yeah.
it wasn't on the big run. It wasn't on the 60-yard run, but it was on another run. And I mean, it was like, holy crap. Like Pete Warner just decapitated somebody. But
His
unfortunately, there's nobody
kappa
behind.
his kappa
Yeah,
was just detated from his head.
yeah, exactly.
So
Okay, so non-football things that we watched. You
yeah,
want to go into
it
that?
was a little light for me this week since we were traveling. So we had a little bit of Bluey at the parents' house, and then we watched when we
Nice.
got back home. We rewatched Emperor's New Groove for the first time, starring you know,
David
legends
Putty
David Spade and also Seinfeld legend David Putty.
or Patrick Warburton.
Yeah,
For
Patrick
those
Warburton, who's
for
great
those who are
in
not
everything.
those are
For
those who are not Seinfeld literate.
the uninitiated.
For the uninitiated.
Yes.
By the way, if you're listening to this and you're not Seinfeld literate, buckle up,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
giddy up.
Giddy up. It's go time.
It's go time.
How about you?
Yeah. So for me, I did a rewatch of the Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman, in
With
preparation to watch
you're talking
Robert
about the one
Pattinson.
with Robert Pattinson.
Yep.
I
And
really I really enjoyed that movie. Thought Pattinson was great. I thought it went on a little too long.
it's 2.5 hours, and it feels it.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, there's good performances. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon,
Hmm.
and then I mean Paul Dano as the Riddler is very good. But I did that in preparation of the Penguin series starring Colin Farrell that's on HBO or on Max now. And
Hmm.
I did watch the first episode of The Penguin and pretty good so far.
Good.
Stars I can't remember her name, but basically the mother from How I Met Your Mother. Uh,
Okay.
Christine Milioti, I believe is her last name. She plays a significant character in that. Also, are you familiar with Marvelous Miss Maisel?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay, you know the husband, Joel. The guy who plays her husband is
Okay.
in The Penguin also.
I think I'd recognize him if I saw him.
Yeah,
Don't know him by name.
right. You probably
Yeah.
recognize him. Also, I've got a couple of recurring, or I guess weekly shows that I'm watching. Only Murders in the Building, which is delightful. Just
So
that's the best word I can come up for it.
we couldn't. My wife and I watched that together. We started it. We got like
Yep,
3 or 4 episodes in, and like just couldn't get there.
couldn't get there. Yeah,
Couldn't get there.
it's it's a nice like 30-minute break from things. Like it's just,
Hmm.
like I watch it and I'm into it, and then when it's over, I don't think about it.
So like
If
we
that makes
love
sense.
all the characters in it too. Like
Yeah,
Selena Gomez is great. Martin Short is great. Steve
yeah.
Martin is great.
I was not really familiar with Selena Gomez. I mean, I knew who she was, obviously, but like she was really the discovery of the show for me. I kind of
Mm.
watched it for Steve Martin and Martin Short, which is not surprising considering I'm a 40-year-old white male. But uh, also, just started last week. Actually, the new episode's dropping tonight. Agatha All Along, which is
Marvel show, right?
a Marvel property. Are you in on the Marvel properties?
I've never gotten there. So personally, I'm more of a DC guy. So
Okay,
Batman, Superman.
just
I've
like
enjoyed.
just
There's
just
some of
like
the
Jerry, yeah,
yeah. So
just like
um, Batman's personally my favorite. I'd lean to him. Superman. I never heard him say anything particularly funny. Uh, so
yeah. Go ahead.
there's a few Marvel things, and there's things that I've like missed, and I've like kind of wanted to go back to and watch
Yeah,
eventually. Like the Infinity War stuff. I've wanted to get
yep.
into the Spider-Verse movies. Are
Those are good.
those are
Yeah.
amazing. Like they're fantastic. Like just absolutely perfect art.
I- I'll
Um,
probably rewatch those. I think the new one's coming out next
is that the
year.
third one?
The third one, yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's coming
we
out.
still need to see the second one. Um,
I've only seen it once, but it was good. It was just as good as the first, probably better than the first.
mm.
It gets more into the lore of the actual like Spider-Verse, so it's um really cool. Okay, also for me, weekly show Rings of Power.
That I need to, and
Uh,
so I've been planning to watch that, but I'm also trying to. I want to do a rewatch of the first season
yeah,
before I go to season two.
Season two is pretty good so far. I think I have like 2 episodes left. So it's getting this next episode that's premiering tomorrow as we're recording this. Um, looks like it's going to be like the big battle of the season. So that'll be
Mm.
interesting. All right, so let's move on to weekly recaps here. Let's go through our picks from last week. For me, I was even Steven, 8-8. Even Steven, 24 and 24 for the year. That's against the spread. I will say, as I made allusion to earlier, before the season started, I picked every game, all 272 games, not against the spread, obviously, but just straight up. For those picks, I am 29 and 19
Not
so
bad.
far. So far, I think that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Um, on my college picks, I was 6 and 4, 22 and 18 for the year there. Those are against the spread.
Mm.
Um, on my upset pick, however, unfortunately not as good. I had the Cardinals over the Lions. I was close, lost by 10, but close but no cigar. I did get my lock of the week, which was Packers over Titans. I probably should have done that as my upset because technically the Packers were the underdog in that
Yeah,
game.
there you go.
So
Just called it wrong.
yeah, so we'll call yeah, so yeah.
So
Uh, so not too bad. How about you, Brandon?
well, I was 8-8 for the week, so I'm starting to round into form. For the year I am 20 and 28, so I have a wide variety of gene picks. As as Elaine would say, gene is trash.
Right.
Um, however, this
Well,
week I did,
you're right in that meaty part of the curve.
yeah.
Not falling
So
behind, not showing off.
yeah, so the first week was really the bad week. I was 5-11, and as Steve Spurrier would say, not very good, not very good.
The
Uh,
old ball coach.
there were some that were worse than us, um, but I did manage to nail the upset pick. I took the Vikings, who were plus 2.5, playing at home
Yep.
against the Texans.
Yep.
And for my lock, I took the Seahawks over the Dolphins, just betting on the
Yeah.
backup quarterback situation, just kind of not being able to. Mike McDaniel's a great offensive mind, but I just don't think when you're when
Right.
Skylar Thompson is your quarterback,
Yeah.
you're gonna have some trouble there.
Looks like they're going with Snoop Huntley, Tyler Huntley this week, who they just signed. Because
Can't get any worse, right?
I think Thompson's hurt now too. I
And it
believe
can't
he
be
had,
any worse than Skylar,
yeah,
though, right?
yeah. Well, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's move on to our next segment here, which we're calling real or fake, or I guess to put it another way, real and spectacular, or
Oh,
fake,
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 fake.
fake.
And by the way, they're real and they're spectacular.
Fake, 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 fake.
And this week we're going to look at three undefeated teams, 3-0 teams. We have five. Now, I mentioned this to you offline. Of the five 3-0 teams, I mentioned I picked all the games before the season started. I correctly predicted three of the five 3-0 teams. Would you like to guess those
All
three
right.
teams?
I'm going to go ahead and say the Bills. The Bills seem like the easiest pick,
Yep,
just because of kind of who they matched up against. They had a little bit of a tough
yep,
time against Arizona, but
yep,
going into that game, you think they're favored. They're playing at home. Arizona's coming off kind of a down year. Even if you think Kyler's kind of going to be back and the offense is
yep,
going to be up, you think the Bills handle business there. So that's one.
yep.
Um, I would say the Chiefs probably.
Check.
Okay, because they started out against Baltimore, which that's a tough game, so you're
Yep.
taking them to win. Um, the Atlanta game was their third one, and who did they play in the middle there?
Bengals,
The
Cincinnati.
Bengals. Yeah,
That
and
was
so
the pass interference call that wasn't, or
that's
the
right.
Jamar Chase getting yelling at the ref and all that stuff.
Yeah, so that's a good call because the first two games are ones that you probably kind of
Yeah.
expect them to. It's going to be a back and forth thing, and they do in both situations just kind of hold on to win. Now the third one, that's going to be the tough one.
For those, just to remind you, the 3-0 teams currently are Steelers, Vikings, and Seahawks. So I picked one of those three teams to start 3-0.
All right, so the Seahawks, let me look at their schedule real quick. All right, let's see.
And while you're doing that, just for the record, let me see. So I picked one of those teams to start 3-0, and I picked the other two to start 2-1. So off.
Okay, so Denver,
Too
New
bad.
England, and Miami. Hmm. I'm gonna I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I don't think you would have picked them to beat Miami in this situation. So I'm gonna say it was the Steelers.
That's wrong, sir.
Ah,
It was the
it
Seahawks.
was the Seahawks. Okay.
I
I knew it wasn't the
so
Vikings.
so here's the thing with the Seahawks. So I the first two games it was who they play Denver at home. So Bo
Hmm.
Nix's first start, right? So that seemed easy.
Right.
New England on the road, which I mean, New England everybody thought wasn't going to be that good.
Hmm.
The Miami game, even if Tua was playing, Seattle's a tough place to go play.
Right. And you're going
And
across the country, right?
across the country, it's a late and Miami was coming off. Well, no, they had a long break because they had Thursday. They had the Thursday
Mm.
night to Sunday. So, but I still felt like now for those Seattle fans who might be listening, for the season, I have the Seahawks finishing 7-10. So,
So you're picking them to
uh,
go 4-10 the rest of the way.
yeah. So, including a loss this week, but we'll get to that here in a
All
little
right.
bit.
All right. So you want
Uh,
to with that. Oh, I guess we need to talk about who we think are
let's discuss
real.
who we think is real and spectacular and who is fake, 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 fake. Let's go with I think the first two are easy. Chiefs,
Yeah, real. I
real
mean, like
and spect.
we talked
Yeah,
about before, they're
we talked
real
about
and
them
they're
earlier. Yeah,
spectacular.
yeah, they're real and they're spectacular. Bills,
Real and spectacular. As long as Josh Allen's there, you're going to have a chance, right?
are we just heading towards the inevitable Chiefs Bills AFC Championship game again?
I
Is
mean,
that
we
where
thought
we're
that.
going?
I mean, there's still Baltimore in there. I mean,
Yeah,
how much do you trust them? But it just
We'll see this week. I mean, Baltimore plays Buffalo, so I mean,
that's the game, and that's probably the game I'm most looking forward to
yep,
at this point, right? And Sunday night game. Bills, the Ravens are favored by 2.5, and so we'll talk about that. But
yep.
um, I'm actually a little surprised at that. But
Okay, and then the last AFC 3-0 team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am leaning towards real and spectacular, but I'm not all the way there. I think, and we talked about this earlier, I think they're getting the best they can out of Fields.
mhm,
What it's going to come down to is our team's going to eventually say, you know what? You are not going to beat us running the football. We are going to
mhm,
force you to beat us with Justin. We're going to force Justin Fields to beat us.
right.
Um,
And then
so
I think the question is like now Justin Fields actually has an offensive line that's competent.
right,
I mean,
right.
did you see the clip of the Bears Colts game where
Oh my
three
God.
Bears players are lying on the ground? Like, I mean, I know they got Caleb Williams some weapons to start out with, but
Man,
like that guy's got no offensive
he's got no
line to
time.
help.
Yeah, he's got
No,
no.
like, well,
Yeah.
how are you going to get it to the guys if you got nothing? So, I think he's in a better situation. He's got better coaching. He's got a better
S-
offensive line,
What?
but
Yeah.
and he's got a defense to. I mean, he had that in Chicago, but
Yeah.
it's just a question of how much do you trust him in the long run.
So here's what I'll say about the Steelers, just to put a button on them. Their last 8 games, 6 of them are so all 6 of their division games are in their last 8 games. The other 2 games, Chiefs, Eagles.
Mm. Well,
Chiefs are at Pittsburgh and then they go to Philadelphia
and those are
in
tough
between.
to. Those are going to be
Yeah.
tough to like the Ravens game is
Right.
going to be a tough divisional game
Right.
anyway. Those games are going to be tough. Cleveland might not be as tough as we thought coming
Fair.
into the
That's fair.
season,
Yeah.
so that's
That's
kind of
fair.
been downgraded. You still
They
got
could be
Cincinnati.
they could be Jameis Winston time by the time
Yeah.
Pittsburgh gets to Cleveland. They're yeah,
Cincinnati,
so
like what?
their last 8 games are home Baltimore, at Cleveland, at Cincinnati, home Cleveland, at Philly, I'm sorry, at Baltimore, and then 2 home games to end, Chiefs and Bengals to end
Mm,
this season.
yeah, that's going to be
Eh,
a stretch. That's going to be
Yeah,
they're going to have a trouble down the stretch run. So we'll see
yeah,
what they're made of.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I think they're real. I think they're real at this point, but it's just
yeah.
they're still a tier below kind of that elite
Yeah, I wouldn't put
AFC
them in.
class
Yeah. Although I will say, that being said, they do have a good chance of being the last undefeated team, I would say.
just based on their schedule
Just
because of
because they have the Colts this week. If they get past that, they got Dallas next week at home. They go to Vegas. Then they have the 2 New York teams back to back, Jets and Giants. That Jets game could be really interesting when we get there. And
Do you remember the last Cowboys Steelers game in Pittsburgh? It
no.
was 2016. It's Dak's rookie year. I think Dallas
Okay.
is 8-1 going in.
Okay.
Pittsburgh takes a late lead,
Okay.
and then Dak dumps the ball off to Zeke, and Zeke
My
takes it to the house on a screen,
my
like just
cousin Zeke Elliott. Yeah. Okay.
Zeke Elliott, yes,
Yeah.
takes it to the house on a screenplay. So
Well, I don't think that Zeke Elliott's coming through the door, but
I don't think so.
we'll see.
Maybe Rico Dowdle,
Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn.
Deuce Vaughn. Man, the running
Yeah.
back situation is bleak. It looks like
We'll
the
get there.
waiver wire in my fantasy team right now, my fantasy league right now.
We'll get there. Okay, let's go to the NFC, the two NFC 3-0s.
Hmm.
Vikings, I'm leaning towards real and spectacular with them as well. Again, their defense is legit. I think I kind of put them in the same category with the Steelers. Like Darnold, I think Darnold's a step above Fields.
Hmm.
Like I think Darnold, if Darnold's forced to win games, depending on the team they're playing, I think he could.
Right.
Their schedule, they've got a London. They play the Packers this week, so obviously we'll see what happens
Yeah,
there. Then
that's kind of a game I'm curious about to kind of see where both of
yeah,
these teams are because Green
yeah,
Bay's kind of been they've kind of it's another getting the best out of their situation.
right.
They're getting
Well,
what they need out of Malik Willis. The run game's great because of the offensive coordinator, right?
and
And then
I'll mention it looks like Love's going to play this week.
oh, he is.
It
I
looks
heard
like it.
rumors that
Looks like.
he was back on the practice field. I didn't know if they tried to rush him back. Like you're two and
And
one now at this
the
point. You need
reason
to.
and the reason I say that too, not to get too far ahead with our picks, but the line is 2.5. Packers are 2.5 point
Mm.
favorites.
Yeah, that was one that I was kind of
So
curious
it's
about
like
because that's kind of baked in there, right?
because you would think, I mean, they are at home. It is in Green Bay, so that usually that means the home team's 3.5 point favorites by default. But if Willis is starting, I would imagine that line maybe it comes back to a pick 'em or the Vikings are favored.
Right.
So I don't know. But after that, they go to London. The Vikings go to London to play the Jets, which
Mhm.
shout out to London, man. They're actually getting a decent game. Like I was
Yeah,
thinking,
we don't see that
like,
very often. We're usually shipping them the
well,
Jaguars, the
they're
Falcons.
not like Germany, who's getting Panthers Giants later in the season.
Someone said that
Um,
was the final punishment for World War II.
yeah, I heard that. You
So
will pay for your sins, Germany.
yes. So
Okay,
I think I'm with you
okay,
there. I think they're real and they're spectacular just based on the fact that the defense is great and they've got great coaching on both sides of the ball. I think I'm with you there.
okay. And last but not least, the Seahawks. I would put them in, if we're going to put anybody in the fake category, it's the Seahawks.
Right.
We talked about who they've played already.
Hmm.
They have the line. They're at Detroit this week on Monday night, so obviously that'll be a step up. Then after that, it's home Giants, which that's probably another win.
Right.
Home 49ers, which I don't know what to make of the 49ers right now. I know McCaffrey's speaking of Germany, McCaffrey's in
Hmm.
Germany, trying to get something going there.
Anytime
And
that you're relying on something that Chandler Parsons had to try to get his health back, that's not a
all
good
right, you told
sign.
me that. You told me that.
Chandler Parsons went over to Germany and that dude was never able to play. Never, it did not work.
Yeah.
Let me say that.
Yeah, and then Seattle's got on the back half of the season they have to go to they visit the Jets. They obviously have their division games, Arizona, the Rams, 49ers. They go to the Falcons in a couple weeks. Like this is not it's it
It
I
seems
could be
like
wrong, but
I think their defense has improved just based on their new coordinator. I think he's kind of
yeah.
brought some new ideas to what
Yeah,
they're doing there. They're not, still stuck in Legion of Boom kind of era things. Shout out to Gino for resurrecting his career. I just don't know how
yeah.
much I just still don't know how much talent
Well,
there is to hang
that
on
was
there.
part of the reason I kind of a little sour on them this year was like I feel like Gino was going to take another step back. Last year he took a step back. I thought, well, and then I didn't know McDonald, their new coach, who comes over from Baltimore. I just didn't know. I just, you don't know until you kind of see. But like I said, we'll see. You know, they got the Lions this week, San Francisco in a couple weeks. We'll
Yeah, and
see how it goes.
I don't really know anything about Ryan enough about Ryan Grubb to kind of bait to to kind of put my faith in him to build the offense to
Yeah.
shout out though to Aiden Dirty, the former Cowboys defensive line coach
Okay.
who is from London. He's
Oh,
English.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So saw him on Hard Knocks.
So he's kind of the inverse of Ted Lasso, I guess.
Yeah,
Like
pretty much.
he's a guy, he's from the other side of the pond, coaching football.
Yep.
All right, cool. So that does it for real or fake. Well, shall we move along to our previews for the
Yeah,
week?
let's get it started.
So we'll start with Thursday Night Football, and considering that's Cowboys, I will cede the floor to you, sir.
All right. So what I was looking at this week was I've still got one in the ESPN Survivor pool. I've still got one entry left. I took the Seahawks
Okay.
last week over
Okay.
Miami.
All
I
right.
was looking at the percentages of people this week who had picked teams, and the Cowboys are easily the
Yep.
most picked teams, which means
Yep.
that we are cursed because the other two most picked teams were in week one, Cincinnati over New England,
Yep.
and week two,
Raiders over
Baltimore over the Raiders.
Baltimore over the Raiders.
Yeah, so both of those have failed miserably. So that makes me feel pretty great about going into
I,
this.
I heard something funny the other day. The Raiders conceivably could have cost Survivor picks 2 weeks in a row because they beat Baltimore.
Hmm.
And then in week 3, most
They
people
were
probably
playing
picked
against
them to beat the
over.
Panthers. So yeah,
Oh
so
yeah, that was a stay away game for me just based on the fact that
yeah,
they were
yeah,
bringing Dalton in. You don't
yeah.
when you're going from
Yeah.
Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, like who is a
Well,
competent
you don't bet
NFL
against
quarterback?
you don't bet against the Red Rifle.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all
right.
there is to it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's all there is to it.
Absolutely not. All right, so for each of these week previews, we will have them sponsored by a um
Immaculate Grid
immaculate grid option.
representative. Yep.
So for the Cowboys Giants matchup, I have taken Kevin Ogletree, former wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys and Giants. Um, Probably most known for his opening week one. I think he had two touchdown receptions against the Giants in New York. I want to
Okay.
say around 2012.
Okay.
So I took
S- Salute
so
to Kevin Ogletree.
in terms of the picks, I took um Giants. I took the Giants plus 4.5. I will say though that like in terms of the betting markets, that line is now at Cowboys minus 5.5. So it has
Okay.
been bet down there. Um I
People
took
are, yeah.
um I just think this is a get right game. The Cowboys know this opponent. They've played well against them. The Dak kind of the two losses that Dak has against the Giants was Dak's rookie year. Steve Spagnuolo was still the defensive coordinator there.
Yep.
He's always given the Cowboys fits. He gave Dak fits that rookie year. Um, but I just think the firepower is still not there. I know that they were able to blitz the Browns kind of into submission,
Mhm.
and Deshaun just does not handle the blitz well. That's one of the things that Dak is actually really good at is handling the blitz. He's been able to find answers. I think they've kind of, hopefully the offense is starting to work its way through. So I think this is kind of a get right game. Now, if they lose this one, this is where the sky actually starts falling, right? This is where things
Yeah.
are a mess.
Well, not to be that guy, but if they lose to the Giants, like I, I, I almost wanted to call this game the Bill Belichick Bowl because like it feels like Belichick could end up coaching one of these two teams
Right.
next year. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you'd call it a get right game. It's one of those you better get right. I would say. From that standpoint. So before the season, again, picked every game. I picked the Cowboys to win, but I will be taking the 4.5
Hmm.
that was available to us through the ESPN Pick'em. I am also for our underdog fantasy. I did 8 picks this week.
Hmm.
One of them is I took Malik Neighbors over 70.5 receiving yards for the
Yeah,
game.
and I'm with you there. I think they just kind of feed him during the
Yeah,
game. I took over 34.5 first half yards. So I think they'll try to probably get him started early.
yeah.
Um,
I
I know
imagine. I
Trayvon's
imagine.
been really
Yeah.
good, but I don't think they generally tend not to shadow guys.
Mm, yeah.
But we'll see how they play that. Kind of different. It may be different under Zimmer, but I just
Yeah.
think they'll probably try to feed him. The thing is, if the Cowboys, so what the Cowboys have had happen against the Saints and the Ravens is that the quarterbacks aren't dropping back in like true pass sets. Like you're getting play action, you're getting zone read stuff, you're getting kind of like bootleg stuff. So in terms of like true dropbacks where the quarterback just takes the ball and drops back, they haven't faced that much. The Giants really don't have, they're not a Shanahan offense. They're not
Right.
built around Lamar, who's the kind of guy who will give them problems.
Day
Um,
Dayball comes from the what tree is he? I mean, he's Belichick. He coached
yeah,
under Belichick, but I mean, from an
for
offensive
offensive
standpoint,
system,
I
that I
don't.
couldn't tell you, but
And
he's
they,
not.
yeah, they don't run the ball well. That's one thing I'll say about the Giants. I don't think they run the ball as well as Baltimore or the Saints did.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing with Saquon,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah,
you're going to get him in Philadelphia. You're getting him behind a good offensive
right.
line. The With the Giants, they don't have that. And if you start hitting Daniel Jones, like that's when his eyes drop. He
Yep.
starts feeling the pressure, and then so if you can hit him early, you get him. You,
I would,
you can't let them start running the ball and gaining momentum. That's what you don't want to happen.
I would just also say, just don't let the Giants score first, I guess, and don't let them kind of get that train
Right, you
rolling.
don't.
You
That's the
know,
thing that's happened in both the first two games, or the first two losses, is that
right.
the other team scored first, and then it's that snowball that sort of happened in the Green Bay game,
Yes.
right? It's that same
Yep.
sort of thing.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think the Cowboys will win this game. They're the more talented team. They beat the Giants. They know their opponent, and so like
Yep.
you expect them to win. Will they? I hope so.
We'll see. We'll see. Tom Brady not calling this game
Thank goodness.
for the first time. You get Herb Street and Al Michaels this week. So, moving on to Sunday early. So we'll start with my guys, the Saints here. Saints are ho going to Atlanta. This preview brought to you by Saints legend Bobby Hebert, Hebert.
Not
Uh,
Herbert.
not Herbert.
A bear.
Uh, Hebert. Um, for this, so let me start my Saints spiel this way. Again, when I picked the games at the beginning of the year, I picked the Saints to beat Carolina and then
Mhm.
lose four in a row, including to the Cowboys. So the fact that they beat the Cowboys week two is in Louisiana, we refer to that as lagniappe. It's just we're just playing with a little extra right now, a little house money.
You know that was
Um,
actually a word in the spelling bee one year.
Lagniappe?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
spelt it
well,
correctly because I'd heard it.
there, there you go. So that being said, I did pick the Falcons to win this game. I mean, it's in Atlanta. On paper, the Falcons really should be better than the Saints. I mean, we talked about their offensive firepower earlier. The Saints right now, their starting center is not going to be playing. He's out. He's on IR, so he's going to be out for a while. He just had groin surgery today. Taysom Hill should be back, which I think is going to be. I think people underestimate how big a deal that was that he wasn't playing last week, especially on those short yardage
Hmm.
type situations. Um, I, my big thing is does Kubiak, after he was built up like, oh my God, Clint Kubiak's the next big star coach, and then he kind of got, basically Vic Fangio and the Eagles said, okay, guess what? You're not going to run the ball, and we're going to make Derek Carr beat us, and Derek Carr didn't beat him. So
I have
we'll
a
see.
question about that. I didn't look at the numbers, but do you have any feel for like how much play action they used versus like in the first
Not
two
a
weeks
lot.
versus yeah, it seemed like they kind of went away from that, which I
So
didn't
the
understand.
problem, I think, was Jalen Carter.
Okay.
I think two things. Once McCoy, the center, got hurt, and Jalen Carter's just living in the backfield, I think they kind of shied away from, we don't want to have Carr exposed too
You don't want
much.
him turning your back on the defense, basically.
Basically, yeah, right. Because that definitely was the thing. And that was kind of my observation as well, was because I know we were texting back and forth during the game.
Hmm.
Um, again, I'm interested to see Atlanta's a team I think you can run the ball against. Um, but I think what I hope from the Saints perspective is that they just don't give up on it. Don't kind of just kind of be consistent with it, be patient with it, and we'll see. Falcons are favored by 1.5. I'm laying the 1.5. My tradition is I always bet against the Saints. It's just the
I
thing. And then also per our agreement, I always bet against the Cowboys
mm.
because I don't want to jinx them. Um,
I took
but
the I will say
go ahead.
I took the 1.5. I just kind of like I like the Saints run game here.
Yeah.
I like their defense too. I just kind of think like the speed that New Orleans has. Like I think that Atlanta probably wants to try to run Bijan a lot. And
Yeah.
I took the under 73.5 rushing yards just based on the fact that
Yeah.
they've kind of got the speed to kind of keep up with that. I know Bijan's like a really dynamic player, but
Yeah.
you look at what happened in their Sunday night game against the Chiefs, they weren't really able to get that ground game going. I
Yep.
think New Orleans kind of presents the same problem in that they've got speedy guys, they've got veterans who know what they're doing, they know how to play, they know what they're really well equipped to kind of take away the run. And if that's the case, can Kirk Cousins, and he's kind of been, coming back like the first week of the season, he looked terrible against Pittsburgh. He's kind of been up and down. He's hit and miss. So like if he's having to fit throws into tight windows, how good does he look? The game's not in prime time,
Right.
so we'll see. We'll see if that how
The
that
two other
although
things I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
his one big win this year though was in prime time, a comeback against the Eagles.
Yeah. Two last things, just to put a button on this. For the Falcons on defense, I think the key for them is the two safeties, Jesse
Mhm.
Bates and Justin Simmons. I know Bates had a pick six against Carr last year in Atlanta, so they're going to be looking for that. The one thing about the Saints last year, they struggled against mobile QBs. Well, last week against Hurts, they played pretty well.
Mhm.
I think they did pretty well. Don't have to worry about that with Cousins. He's definitely not mobile, even if he wasn't coming off a repaired Achilles.
Right.
Uh, so I looked for the pass rush to be a little bit more formative this week than it
Okay.
was
Yeah, I think
last week.
I'd agree with
Uh,
that.
Hopefully Chase Young can get. I feel like Chase Young has been playing well for us. He just hasn't gotten home. I think he's got like half a sack this year. So I look for that. I look for Saints defensive line. Can they put pressure on Cousins? And can Carr just not turn again? Don't lose the game. Like
Hmm.
just let's just be smart and not
Can
lose the game.
Shaheed actually catch one of those deep ball targets that he had? He had two that were like
Yeah.
at the goal line and just, he had them knocked
He's
away or he
he's
dropped it.
not yeah, he's not a contested catch guy. Like if that's Olave, he's maybe making those catch. I mean, he's got a
Mm,
better chance of making those catches, but Olave's not as fast as Sheed.
right.
So, but anyway, moving on. So we'll go to I think we mentioned this earlier. I think it's the game of the week. Vikings and Packers. This one brought to you by uh, Steve Bono,
That's right.
quarterback Steve Bono. He's a Immaculate Grid legend as well.
Yes.
I took so for underdog, I'm taking Jefferson over point 0.5 rushing receiving touchdowns. Just feels like him and Darnold are in
He's just
sync.
he
Yeah,
always is like I mean, he's a red zone target. He's always a threat from outside. So you're always going to like, he's just kind of seems like a safe touchdown pick, right? Like,
yeah.
if you're going to take a touchdown pick, Jefferson tends to be the one that I'd kind of like lean toward there too. And so,
Yep.
like, this is kind of the question we're going to get to see. I think some really good offensive coaching here. We'll see if Jordan
Absolutely.
Love
Yeah.
is back.
Yep.
They kind of the Packers still have that run game. They were able to lean on that really heavily with Malik Willis in. Are they still do they still lean on that with Love back? Do they kind of try to take some of the pressure off of him coming back? What does Florio do against that attack? How does he kind of combat that? And then what does Darnold look like, kind of on the road in Lambeau? It's
I
not the cold season. At least he's kind of lucky in that he gets to go to Green Bay early, right?
yeah, I do feel like well, no, they played San Francisco. I was going to say, is this the best defense that Minnesota's played yet? But they played San Francisco
Hmm.
and the Houston's defense isn't. I didn't think it was that bad, but I mean, I guess
I
30,
mean,
34. Yeah.
they gave up a lot of points to
So,
the Colts too. So I'm not completely sold on the makeover that the Texans defense was
yeah.
pretty bad last year.
Yeah.
And so um I'm not sure
Yeah.
that I'm completely sold on them yet.
But I will say, another thing to look out here. Green Bay, I believe, has 7 interceptions as a team
Hmm.
this far this season. So yeah. So again, Darnold, don't be dumb. Don't lose the game.
Right.
Uh, I took the Packers straight up before the season. I'll be laying the 2.5 here
I took
with
the
them.
Vikings and the points here.
All right. Uh,
All right.
moving on. You want to
Yep. Next up, we've
next?
got the Jeremiah Trotter matchup. The Eagles will pay a visit to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers are getting 2.5 at home. Um, this is also like a playoff matchup as well, a rematch of
So,
last year's
yep,
first round playoff game, which the Bucks won.
yep.
Um,
That was when the Eagles were in free fall.
yep.
Uh, and yeah, and the Bucks kind of snuck into the playoffs and got that home game, being the NFC South winner, and
Hmm.
yeah, and we're able to win and then go to Detroit and almost win there. So yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one. This is two, they're both 2-1.
Hmm.
Eagles are coming off obviously the win against the Saints. Bucks are coming off
A
just a
loss.
just a
Ugly.
pounder. Listen, if Sean Payton knows how to do one thing, it's beat the Buccaneers.
That's
So
right.
shout out to the Broncos there and Bo Nix for his first career win. I'm going to take the 2.5 here with the Bucks. It's kind of a jinx situation too, where like I kind of want to jinx the Bucks. So,
See,
um,
I'm taking
but
and this will get me into trouble later. This when we talk about upset picks, but I'm taking the Bucks here too. And I think part of that is like the fact that they beat them last year in the playoffs.
yeah,
But also like the fact that I think Philadelphia might be without their top two leading receivers. And so you might be looking
and,
at
and they've
uh
got both of their tackles got hurt in the Saints game as well. Lane Johnson got a concussion. Mekhi Becton, I forget what his injury was, but he was out. I mean, he missed a good portion of the game. So, and you know, Tampa's defense is not, it's not formidable, I guess.
yeah,
This
it's
also
kind
could
of
be, this also
slightly
could be
like
the,
above average, right?
yeah, this also could be the Devin White, revenge game for
Mm,
but if the Eagles let him play, like he was
right.
a, he was a healthy scratch last week. But just, that's something else to keep an eye on. But yeah, I take the Bucks straight up and I'm taking the 2.5, obviously here.
Yeah, I just kind of like the fact that the Bucks are kind of looking to bounce back. The Eagles are kind of coming off a win, so you kind of like going the opposite way here. Just the fact that the Eagles might be missing weapons, you kind of wonder how that plays out. Like if the
Yeah.
guys that Jalen Hurts relies on catching those deep balls isn't
Yep.
there, then like what does the offense look like? Like what are they doing?
And free advice to Tampa, just guard Dallas Goedert. Just put somebody on him.
Well, that last play, and I think I was looking at it, I was listening to like a fantasy podcast, and they said that the Eagles just forgot to cover got or the Saints just forgot to cover Goddard. They
No,
didn't.
it wasn't that.
It
It
was
was
a
just a crossing.
and the right
Two
the
guys ran into
Saints.
each
So
other, and then
they're
one guy, it
yeah, it
was
was a
just,
busted coverage more
yeah,
than it wasn't even a busted coverage. It was just a
yeah,
collision in terms of it was a mesh concept, and the mesh did what it was supposed to do. Right, was
yeah,
knock off one of the defenders.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. The game really turned on two big plays: the Saquon run, and then
Mm-hmm. All right, so next up we've
yeah.
got the Darius Hayward Bay Bowl, which is the Pittsburgh Darius Hayward Bay.
Was it
I
wasn't he
drafted
the Raider? He was drafted in the top 10, right, by the
yes,
Raiders.
who
Yeah,
he was a Al Davis special.
I'll, yep,
So I drafted him one year in a fantasy league, and my cousin said he has more syllables in his name than he will have receptions this year.
yeah,
And so
probably was
that
right.
is yeah, it wasn't far off. Um,
Probably was right.
So Steelers Colts, I took Richardson under 15 and a half completions. His line for attempts is 26 and a half. So I figured he's completing,
Yeah,
about 50% there. You're looking
you're
at a pretty pretty
I think you're safe on this one. Yeah,
yeah,
especially again with Pittsburgh's defense.
right. So
So all that to say, I took the Colts before the season. I'm taking the 1.5, and I'm taking the Colts. I mean, Steelers can't win every game, right? They can't go 17-0. I mean, they got to
I'm
lose.
laying the point and a half just because, man, Anthony Richardson when he looks great, he's when he's good, he's great, and when he's not, it looks ugly. It's like
Yeah,
he will hit some insane throws, but he'll also just miss some layups, and it's just that variance, like against a good defense,
yeah.
I just don't see it happening.
I'm I'm
I
kind
gotta
of
tell you, I don't see it happening.
I'm kind of putting stock in the Indianapolis. It's in Indianapolis. They've got Latu, rookie out of
Hmm.
UCLA, who's a pretty good pass rusher. So maybe they, I don't know. I'm gonna stick to my guns here, and I'll take the 1.5 and take the Colts.
You got to figure this is an ugly game no matter which way it goes, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. This will not be. I don't think this will be on my multi-view this week, but
I do
I'll,
not think so.
no. All right, moving on here uh, to the Bubby Brister Bowl. This was my contribution this week. When I was looking at the document earlier, I was like, "Oh, he doesn't have one of these yet. Let me see what we got." So Bubby Brister, another quarterback. We're kind of quarterback heavy on these, but we'll
Hmm.
try to we'll try
We'll
to
mix it up.
spice it up later. Broncos visiting the Jets. Jets are given 6.5. I took Garrett Wilson over 63.5 receiving yards.
Hmm.
You and I were lucky enough to watch Thursday Night Football together last week when they played the Patriots with a lovely bunch of folks. Shout out to Christian's Tailgate and all the Jets fans that were there.
You know, I gotta say, I did not know that Jets fans existed outside of New York.
Jets are coming in after that loss. Now, I will say I did have the Jets starting 3-0 this year. I had them beating. I think we talked about this last week. I all through preseason I thought 49ers would beat the Jets for week 1, and then right before the season started I changed it. I was like, no, I think the
Hmm.
Jets can get them. 49ers are having a lot of turmoil with it, with everything, with the IU situation, the Trent Williams situation. But
Well,
anyway,
it's also an Aaron Rodgers revenge game in that situation, right? For not
right,
drafting.
that too, yeah. Um, but I do have the Jets going on a winning streak here. I don't think I
Hmm.
have them losing until Halloween when they play the Texans. Their schedule just lines up pretty well. So Broncos, I will say though, I do believe I took the 6.5, but I think the Jets will win, but I did take the 6.5, I think. Let me double check
Yeah, I
that.
took the 6.5 as well. And I think like in terms of I
Yeah.
was looking at I think right now in terms of locks, not to give anything away too early, but I'm leaning Chiefs just on based on the fact that Justin Herbert might not play. They might be starting Taylor Heineke. The Chargers are missing tackles, but if I think if Herbert comes back in, then I think this would probably be my backup. This is probably my backup
This,
plan. Jets
yeah,
over
this is
Broncos.
this is my lock. This is my lock of the week. Is Jets over Broncos.
Well, you got to figure also that Rodgers,
Easy one.
he oh sorry, Rodgers probably wants to get back at what was it the the prior Denver coach Nathan.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett, he kind of got upset when Peyton kind of went after him when he
Yep.
took the job. You got to figure Aaron Rodgers kind
Yep.
of wants to, put on a
Well,
little bit
that's
of a
Rogers'
show there.
guy.
Right.
I mean, that's Roger. The reason they hired him, the Jets hired Hackett was so that Rogers would kind of agree to go over there. So, all right. Up next, we're going to look at the Aaron Glenn Bowl. Aaron Glenn, Saints coaching legend, now the current defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions.
Also former Cowboy legend as well.
Ah, true. Yes. Um, this game, Jaguars at Texans. Texans given 6.5. Both teams coming off of losses. The Jaguars, is Doug Peterson going to be the first coach fired?
I mean, he
It's
certainly got a
possible.
chance to. Yeah, absolutely.
It's possible. Yeah, this you talked about a get right game for the Cowboys. I feel like this is the same thing for the Texans at home, division opponent. I mean, you got to think that they want to. I don't know about if Mixon's playing in this game or not, but you got to think they want to get back to their winning ways. I will say they probably want to be careful. Jacksonville's gonna be desperate, I would think, to
I
get a
would
win here. I would
absolutely.
hope. I would hope. I mean, maybe be careful. I before the season I took the Texans to win. Let me double check what I did in terms of the spread. Yep, I laid the 6.5.
I'm taking the 6.5 points here, and this is just kind of, and for
Yeah.
me, this is kind of just kind of going against the grain here. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people be on Texans -6.5 just because they're
Yep.
kind of coming off a loss, but I think um, I'm not completely sold on the Texans overall, just because of not that they're not a good team, but just I don't know how much I want to upgrade them to like an elite team yet. I
Yeah.
know this is
Yeah.
a divisional matchup, so I think it'll be a little bit closer than people expect. I know I'm probably one of the people that's probably kind of getting to the point where I'm out on Trevor Lawrence. I know he was coming into the league. Everyone kind of said
Uh, you
he
you haven't been listening. You haven't been listening to ESPN and other sources today. I think a lot of people are. They're starting to be like, yeah, maybe he isn't that good. Like,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, I know he kind of had that lost first season under Urban
Yeah.
Meyer, so it kind of we gave him the
Ugh.
benefit of a doubt
Yeah.
for benefit of the doubt for a little while. It's starting
Yeah.
to feel like that benefit is starting to run a little thin, and I know like we came
Yeah.
into he'll still have his moments where he makes those throws like the throws that we saw out of college where you think he's a generational talent, but I think we kind of got a it just kind of got to the point where we were like, this is a can't miss prospect, and it just didn't.
Wasn't.
He
Go
was
ahead. Go ahead.
definitely like the consensus number 1 overall pick. So I wouldn't have said like, they should have taken someone different, but it's just like that the possibility that he misses was like not zero, where I think a lot of people were saying, this is a Peyton Manning, this is a, one of those guys where you're definitely not going to miss. I think
Right.
there was
Yeah.
I was a little bit more uncertain than I think a lot of people going into that draft.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you've been proven right because most of those quarterbacks are, well, except for Lawrence, are not on their team anymore. One
Hmm.
of them is on the Cowboys now, Trey Lance.
Yeah, yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Were the Jaguars in like the AFC title game or like close to it a couple years ago
They were in the
with
AFC title
Lawrence?
game a few years ago with Blake Bortles. They had that game against New England where
Okay.
they had that.
Yeah.
I think Miles Jack ripped the ball
I'm
out.
thinking,
Should have been called a
yeah,
fumble, but wasn't, because they would have been.
yeah.
I think it would have been, because that would have been. It would have been
That was the
Jacksonville, Philly. It was
that
the
was the Minneapolis Miracle year. Yeah, the Saints
mm,
lost the yeah
and that was the
because
year
yeah.
the I
Philly
think the
special.
yep,
Yeah.
Philly special year. So
Yep.
it would have been Jacksonville, Philadelphia in the Super Bowl, but that ended up not happening because of what I think was a bad. I think they called the player down when he wasn't. Miles Jack should have been. It should have been ruled a fumble. Miles Jack should have had the ball, and so they should have.
Yeah. That
Been
was the was that the well no that was the Brady yeah that was a Brady year but they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. Was that Brady's last Super Bowl with the Patriots? The one they lost to Philly? Maybe I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
that's a good question.
Um, Real quick, it was not Daniil Hunter who got suspended for the Texans. It was Danico Autry.
Mm,
So
gotcha.
another signing they had this offseason. So that's probably what
Okay.
confused me. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going Texans -6.5. Laying the points there. Moving along. The Von Bell, another Saints legend bowl. We got the Bengals 0-3. The only one of three 0-3 teams. We were just talking about the Jaguars. Probably the most surprising 0-3 team, the Bengals, at the rejuvenated Carolina Panthers.
We've also got
Panthers
we got an Andy Dalton revenge game here.
got an Andy Dalton revenge game. And speaking of which, I am taking the over on Andy Dalton, 222 and a half passing yards. After seeing what Jaden Daniels did to the Bengals on Monday night, and also a reminder, the only quarterback so far this year with a 300-yard passing game and 3 touchdowns is the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. So I'm uh I'm gonna buy on the hype there. I do think the Bengals win this game. Again, this is another one where like they kind of have to win this. You don't want to be 0-4. Um, Although before the season, well actually, so I'm looking at my predictions here. Before the season, I did have the Panthers winning this game, but I also
Mhm.
didn't think the Bengals were going to be 0-3.
Right.
Um, So
I think one of the issues with the Bengals
but I
this year,
am, yeah,
one of the issues with the Bengals this year has just been their defense has not been. It's kind of like, they had a really good defense when they made that Super Bowl run, and it's just seems like it's
yeah,
slowly sort of started to wear away. They just haven't been
yep,
able to like keep the resources, or if it's I don't know if it's scheme or if it's the fact that resources have gone down, the
yeah. I
players that
know,
they it just hasn't been there this year. Like look at like you said, look what Jaden Daniels did against them. And then since their offense hasn't
yeah,
been, you know, unstoppable, they've had to try to keep up and they haven't been able to.
yeah. I know Trey Hendrickson, another Saints legend, was a big piece for them. I think I want to say 'cause I heard somewhere the other day that he's playing injured right now, but
Mm,
hopefully they can get that. Hopefully they can get that turned around. Cincinnati is a known slow starter. I saw a stat a couple weeks ago that like since Zach Taylor took the team over, they in week 1 and week 2 they were like 1-11 or something like that. I
hmm.
mean, so look, the season's still young, but again, 0-4, you can make the playoffs from 0-3. The Texans did it in one of the Deshaun years. I think it was
Hmm.
2018. But yeah, not an ideal scenario to
Especially
start
in that
the
division,
season.
right? Like
Exactly,
you've
yeah.
already got Pittsburgh 3-0. You've got Baltimore that's
Yep.
now 1-2, but still like
Yeah, you
building up.
definitely don't
But
want to.
you don't
Yeah,
want to
you
start
do
0-3 or start 0-4.
0-4. Yep.
So
So again, I'm taking. I guess I'll stick with. I'll man of my word. I'll stick with the Panthers and I'll take the points. But yeah, this is definitely one that the Bengals gotta win.
yeah, I took the points, I think the Bengals pull this out. I don't think
Yep.
Dalton gets his revenge, but I do think it's a little bit of a close game just based on the fact that Cincinnati's defense isn't quite.
Right.
They're not an immovable object, so to speak.
All right. Last game in the early slate, the Chris Chandler Bowl. Former Falcons Super Bowl quarterback Chris Chandler, but this game is Rams at Bears.
This would
Um,
this would should be pretty ugly, right?
this is what I would call must miss.
If
Ba-
if they were playing in my backyard, I wouldn't raise the blind,
right,
as they say.
exactly, exactly. Bears are giving 2.5, and the only reason is because the Rams are just so banged up on,
Hmm.
I think. If Puka's playing, if Cup's playing, you got to think the Rams would be favored, especially coming off the win they just had against the 49ers.
Right.
Um, I let's see, before the year, what did I do here? I picked the Rams, so I'll definitely be taking the points here. The Bears, to what we were talking about earlier, their offensive line is so bad.
Hmm.
And I know Aaron Donald's not playing for the Rams anymore, but
Right.
Braden Fisk and Jared Verse are pretty good. Like
Hmm.
they've 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 had a pretty good start to their rookie years here. And look, Sean McVay's a good coach. I mean, like
You expect that
uh,
offense to be able to at least like move the ball a little bit. You still got
yeah,
Matthew Stafford. You're still probably expecting them to, at least like be able to hang some points. And so it's really just going to be a question of like, you know, how well does the Bears defense play? How well do they slow
yep,
down that offense? And then what does Caleb Williams do? Is he able to just kind of like put them in
yeah,
make enough positive plays, either with
yep.
his legs or getting the ball to, the weapons that they have. I know their running game's kind of been a non-entity. DeAndre Swift does not look swift out there right now.
He's
Um,
on my fantasy team, so I can confirm that. Yeah.
you speak from experience that he has not been good.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm taking the Rams in the points based, and this is based really just
Yep.
a bet on offensive coaching, despite the fact that they're missing a lot of key pieces.
It's one of those situations where like the Bears, like for me at least, the Bears were a team I thought at the beginning of the year could make some noise. They've not done anything the first 2 weeks to impress me, so now I'm kind of almost mad at them. I'm like,
Right.
screw you guys. I'm just taking the other team. Moving on. Late slate. We've got 4 games. Yeah, we got 4 games. I would say one of these is watchable, and we'll start with that one. And it's Chiefs at Chargers. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Chargers getting 7.5. This one brought to you by Chris Chambers. I don't remember Chris Chambers. He was a receiver.
He was a receiver. He was I kind of lump him and David Boston kind of go hand in hand in my
Ah,
mind because those guys
gotcha.
are kind of contemporaries. I think they played. I think they were both on the Chargers at some point. David
Yeah.
Boston, Mister, looked like he was a bodybuilder at one point, but Chris Chambers, like also played with
Yeah.
Miami. So just kind of one of those wide receivers in those early
Oh, that's
2000s.
where, yeah, I remember him
Yeah,
from Miami.
he's
Yeah, I remember
definitely
more.
more of a you think of him as a Dolphin, right?
Okay,
So,
fair enough. We are both taking the underdog give me pick, which is Mahomes over a point 0.5 total yards.
hmm
Um, at the beginning of again, before the season, now this is before Herbert was hurt and Joe Alt was hurt and Rashawn Slater was hurt. I had the Chargers winning this game. So I'll definitely be taking the 7.5.
Yeah,
I
I think
just, again, the Chiefs just, it's not that they don't impress me, but it's just like they could lose this game and I'd be like, all right, fine. Like, it's no big deal.
it's one of the things where they like this is one of those games where you probably like 7.5 is probably I think that's baked into that number right now is the fact that Herbert's probably a question mark. That 7.5
Yep.
probably assumes he's not playing.
Yep.
So I think if Herbert ends up playing, Herbert not a bear, as we would say.
Correct.
Um, if Herbert plays, I would probably take the Chargers in the points. And like I said, for in terms of a lock
Yep.
pick, then I'd probably move off of the Chiefs there. But I think, if you're relying on Taylor Heineke, I just don't think against Spagnuolo
Yeah.
that they've got enough
Yeah.
weapons to get it done. And uh,
S-
I think we're just,
Spagnuolo's a great def yeah.
I just don't.
Spagnuolo's a great defensive coordinator, except when he's coaching the Saints. So, but that's yeah. So we're both well you're laying the points.
I'm laying the points. I'm
I'm
laying the
taking the
points,
points.
assuming that Herbert does not start.
Right. And that's your lock of the week, right? For now.
Yes, for now.
We're for now. All right, moving on. This game is going to be talk about a must miss. The Brandon Lloyd Bowl. Brandon Lloyd presents Patriots at 49ers. 49ers giving 9.5. This was 10.5 for a minute.
And
Uh,
it got beat back down to 9.5.
yeah, I guess with the 49ers with all their injuries and whatnot, but and look, the Patriots have been competitive the
hmm
first except for last week against the Jets. I mean, they were I mean, they should have beaten Seattle, honestly.
It looks like
That
it looks like it's in a lot of places it's 10, some places it's 10.5. So it's still, I mean, it's still hanging
um
around there. So I think
I'm I
I'm
think I
laying the
took
points.
I think I took them or maybe did I? No, yeah, I took 9.5. I think the 49ers will win the game. Again, this is another one. Look, we talk about this is a recurring theme here, but like 49ers need to win this game. If
hmm
Seattle's 3-0 and you just lost to the Rams in a division game that you should have won, that you were up 10 points late, gotta win this. You gotta come away with a win. And Arizona's not gonna be, they're not gonna go away. Uh,
Right.
we'll
Yeah, it
talk about
seems
them
like
here in a little
they've
bit,
got
but
their defense may not be there, but their offenses with Kyler, I think they've gotten some things figured out
yeah,
on that side of the ball. So they're going to be competitive at least.
yeah. So anything else about this
No, I
game?
don't think so.
I heard that this might be Jacoby Brissett's farewell game as Patriots quarterback. Might be Drake May time
Yeah,
next
but
week.
this is probably one where you don't want to throw like against the Jets, you
No,
probably don't want to throw Drake May into the fire here just because
nope.
the pass blocking situation in New England's not good. You don't want to destroy the guy's career early. You want to give him time. But this is one where you kind of just let Jacoby go out there and take the blows for you.
Yeah. Patriots next game is against the Dolphins at home. So
Yeah,
that feels a little more ease them in.
yeah.
If you're gonna go that route.
If you also want to talk about must miss.
Yeah, I mean these next two. Although I will say this next one, the Tom Tupa game, famous punter Tom Tupa, uh, Commanders at Cardinals. I think this would actually be a decent game.
I think so too. And I
Uh,
think you're going to get you're probably not going to get a lot of good defensive play, but you're going to get to see some quarterbacks making some plays. You're probably going to
yeah.
get Kyler scrambling for plays. You're going to Marvin
What's
Harrison.
the over under on this game?
Let's take a look.
You got that?
Like,
Cardinals are given 3.5. So Vegas thinks that this is pretty even because usually a home team gets 3.5 by default. So
yeah, the over uh I will say I would say the home team line probably is closer to two these days.
Okay.
Um, but it looks like the over under is 50.5, so they do expect some points in here.
That's what I would, if you'd asked me to guess, I would have guessed 50 or 50,
Yeah.
yeah, around that number. I am taking the over on James Conner, your cousin,
Hmm.
uh, 67 and a half rushing yards. I'm going to take that over. Commanders, again, this is probably going to be a high scoring game, I think. It might be, like I said, it might end up being one of the better games of the week. With the way Daniels is playing, with the way Kyler, so we get to see two good quarterbacks, good receivers, Maserati, Marvin Harrison Jr. Uh,
Terry
they've got
McLaurin.
Trey McBride, who's
Hmm.
a tight end for the Cardinals,
Yep.
he was like all of a sudden, like week before my fantasy draft, it's like, oh, Trey McBride's awesome. It was like
Yep.
that kind of thing. It was like, okay,
I
I
think it was one
didn't,
of those things where he kind of at the end of the year last year he started to pick up steam, and he's like
yeah,
once Kyler came back, they started to go to him more. So he kind of developed into a weapon. And tight end's one of those positions where it takes a little bit longer to develop. So like he's kind of like picked up steam, and so he's been one of their like really good targets uh outside of Marvin Harrison.
yep. All right,
Uh,
last late game here. This one is must miss for sure.
mm,
Amari Cooper deserves better. But Amari Cooper game. Browns at Raiders. Raiders given a point and a half. I mean, both of these teams are coming off of just
brutal,
who did the
brutal
brute?
performances, right?
Yeah, brutal. Yeah, I mean, they both lost to. So both of these teams lost to probably the two worst teams, or a lot of people thought were the two worst teams in the NFL. Browns losing to the Giants, Raiders losing to the Panthers. I still think the Raiders are a good team.
Hmm.
Um, I know Antonio Pierce had that weird press conference where he's talking about business decisions and all that, but like, and now he's talking about like there might be a quarterback switch. We might see Aiden O'Connell. I don't know.
I will
I
say like the Cowboys played the Raiders in the last preseason game of the season,
yep,
or last preseason game before the season, and
right,
the Raiders kind of played both quarterbacks. I thought O'Connell actually outplayed Minshew when we played him.
yeah,
Um, I just
yeah. I was
I don't think there's like I don't think there's a big drop off there. Like I don't think there's a huge difference in the two,
I was
right?
situation. You have Minshew as the veteran backup, but
I don't know.
right,
I'm laying the point here, point and a half here, just based on
yeah,
I just
um, yeah.
it
So
it's
I took Cleveland before the season.
hmm
That was probably under the assumption Deshaun would be competent,
competent.
but yeah,
If Max
I'm
Crosby's
I'm
able to
take
get into that backfield, like he is,
yeah,
Watson has shown absolutely no ability to hold up against the blitz. Anytime he's getting pressure, he's been awful, basically. And
yeah.
if
We're
Crosby will destroy your offensive line, and I just don't see if that happens, like their offense is just, just
yeah,
inoperable at that point.
we're on Jameis watch, I think.
I
I
think
think we're
so.
on Jameis watch now. I'm taking the point and a half of Cleveland at that. Moving on. Bills at Ravens. Ravens are given 2.5.
Hmm.
So again, Vegas thinks this is probably going to be a little bit of an even matchup.
Yep.
Um, I am so again before the season, I had Baltimore winning in this situation. Now, I had a hot take about this game. Give me, please, just let me cook for a minute.
All right. All right. I'll give you the
My
floor.
hot, my hot take was, could the Bills be the week four version of the Saints? And here's what I mean. I don't mean that the Bills and the Saints are even close to the same football team, but here's what I mean. Last week, before the game against, before the, right, Clint Kubiak's the next big thing. And then they play the Eagles, who are desperate for a win. I think the Bills are coming into a similar situation now. A couple key differences here. Obviously, Josh Allen is better than Derek Carr, I would say. Um, this game, Baltimore's defense is not what it has been in years past. I just looked
Hmm.
this up a minute ago. They're giving up like 26 points a game, which is very un-Raven like. Again, we talked about their defense coordinator, Mike McDonald from last year, is now the head coach in Seattle, so that makes sense. Um, I just but I think Baltimore's desperate. I think and Lamar, look, everybody's talking about Lamar and he's I've never heard of a two-time MVP that gets so scrutinized. Like it's just every week it's like, are we still sure he's good? Like I don't get it. I think this will be a fun game. Again, it could be high scoring. Here's the thing about Buffalo. Aside from the Cardinals, which they had to come back to win that game,
Hmm.
they took advantage of Miami after Tua got hurt, and then they beat up on the
Jaguars.
Jaguars. Thank you. And so, is this really I mean, aside from the Cardinals, this is a road game, and that Cardinals game was at home, so this might be their first kind of road test. We'll see. You know, how do they handle this? Before the year, I took Baltimore in this game, so I'm going to lay. I mean, 2.5. You basically have to lay if you think Baltimore's going to
Right.
win, you got to lay the points.
Right.
Um,
It's basically a pick 'em on a neutral site,
yeah,
right?
right. So I'm going to go with the Ravens here, but again, should be a good game. So
Yeah, I'm taking Buffalo in the points. I think Buffalo is the better team. Um I mean it's fair to kind of call into question what they did, but I think the just what Josh Allen has done, he's looked really good um in the situation. I mean, Jacksonville's defense isn't terrible. Like
right,
and they just shredded that.
yeah,
They shredded that defense basically
Eh,
before, like even taking out of the equation, like what Trevor Lawrence, what the Jaguars offense
yeah,
is,
yeah.
like James Cook, you got Kincaid, you got Knox, you got Khalil Shakir, like
Keenan,
even
Keon Coleman that we
Keon
mentioned
Coleman,
earlier. Yeah,
like they've been able to replace kind of what they lost in Diggs.
yeah,
They've been able to like still build the offense, and Allen, as long as I think the key here is Allen able to play mistake-free football? Does
right,
he, if he
right,
tries to do too much, that's when he can get into trouble. If he starts turning the ball over, if he starts
yeah,
pressing, that's when
yep.
they get into trouble. But
Yeah, so another situation where if you're Buffalo, you don't want Baltimore to score first.
mhm,
You kind of want to your point, like, and also while we're on this game, just a shout out to Damar Hamlin
mhm.
for getting an interception in the last. I mean, can't imagine what that guy's been through the last, you know,
I think couple
year,
years
couple,
basically,
yeah.
yeah.
So shout out to him.
And I
All
will
right,
say,
go ahead.
just before we kind of I will say, Lamar's a two-time MVP, but Dak probably could have won the MVP last year.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
So he
Why
could
not?
be a one and a half. We'll call him a 1.5 time
He
MVP.
did. Dak finished second in
He
voting
did
last
finish
year. Yeah,
second.
I thought so. All right, Monday night doubleheader again. How do you feel about Monday night doubleheaders, real quick?
I kind of like it when it's to kick off the season, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the first week. You're kind of like you want kind of that, you want to be overwhelmed by football, right? You want
Right.
to let it just kind of like wash over you when it's 4 weeks into the season. And then the other part of this is that we lose out on the Manning cast, which is probably like, especially since they've
Right.
added Belichick, like
Yeah. Right.
he's been fantastic, right? Um, so I don't mind it, but I just don't like the way that they've done it lately.
So there are two more Monday night doubleheaders this year after this week. There's one in October and there's one in November for some reason.
It's just, yeah, it's just
So,
weird and then trying to like balance the Monday night watching, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, I don't mind it if the games are good.
Right.
I think like last week, there's one good game and there's one not so good game.
Hmm.
Let's start with the not so good game.
All right.
Brought to you by Ryan Tannehill, sitting on his couch somewhere, waiting for somebody to call him. Um,
Miami.
I mean, yeah, it could be. Titans at Miami. Miami is getting a getting a half a point. It's basically a pick 'em
Pick 'em
at
right.
this. Yeah. I am taking Cowboy legend, Memphis legend, as you said earlier, Tony Pollard over 53 and a half rushing yards here. Uh, yeah, flip a coin. I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, like I said, I think Snoop Huntley, Tyler Huntley is starting for the Dolphins. I think I read that somewhere. So
Yeah.
good
I'm,
luck.
I'm taking the Titans. I'm laying the half point. I'm picking the
Yeah.
Titans to win honestly, just based on their defense. I
A-
don't,
And again, we talked about this earlier. This team could be 2-1 very easily.
right.
If Levis doesn't, we've said this a couple times with other quarterbacks, like if Levis just doesn't Levis, then if the Levis doesn't break,
If
we
it keeps on rain,
if
but
it
if it keeps
keeps
on raining, the Levis is going to
the
break.
Levis is going to break. Yeah.
Right. Seems
Let's move on to maybe hopefully a better game on Monday night. The final game of the weekend, the Cliff Averill, brought to you by Cliff Averill. I believe Cliff Averill played for the Saints too. But anyway, Seahawks at Lions. Lions giving 4.5. I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sun God, over 73.5 receiving yards. The Seahawks, yeah, we talked about earlier, surprise 3-0. Lions easily could be 3-0, kind of let the Tampa Bay game get away from them
hmm
earlier. Um,
It just seemed like their offense in that game was a little disjointed. They weren't able to
yeah,
really they I think they got probably a little too cutesy with stuff. They're it seemed like they're trying to do a little too much. They were trying to do a little too
yeah,
much in the pass game instead of just
yeah,
kind of like getting a little
right.
too cute. You've got Jameer Gibbs, you got David Montgomery. Why not just line up and smash mouth them? And I think they tried to throw the ball a little bit too much in that game.
Yeah, do you remember when Ben Johnson was the hotshot OC? Everybody thought he was going to be the next guy. I wonder if he's kind of feeling the pressure this year of
Right.
like because he didn't take a job, so he's coming back, and now it's like, okay, well, like if I like, did
I got to
I
show people that I'm
right?
still like a
Am
great
I
offensive coordinator.
did I Eric Bieniemy myself to like I didn't take this job, I came back, but now people are gonna see like uh you know see that. By the way, real quick, just to double back to the Titans Dolphins, I did pick the Dolphins, so I
Okay.
am taking the half point. So just to be clear.
All right.
Um, but yeah, back to Seahawks Lions. I mean I've kind of root for the Lions. They have a lot of former Saints staff. Dan Campbell was on the Saints staff. Aaron Glenn was on the Saints staff.
Dan Campbell, Cowboy legend.
Cowboy legend Dan Campbell, yes, of course. Um, they do they do have Marcus Davenport, who the Saints famously traded 2 first-round picks to
The
draft,
draft.
and he never did a damn thing for the Saints. He went to the Vikings, didn't do a damn thing, and now he's on the Lions and he's hurt again. Shout out to the former Texas San Antonio
I was going to
Roadrunner,
say
Marcus
UTSA,
Davenport.
right?
Yep. Yeah, he was one of those where like a month before the draft, everyone was like, "Hey, this guy's really good," and then the Saints were like, "Yeah, we'll trade 2 first-rounders to go up and get him." That was when the Saints were just throwing.
Oh, that was when they were lighting resources on fire, basically,
Oh yeah,
right?
oh yeah, that was flame on
Hmm.
as far as that goes. All right, so I am. Let me see. I had the Lions winning, but did I take the point? Yeah, I
I'm t
took the four. I took the 4.5 with Seattle, but I have the Lions winning outright.
Yeah, I'm taking Seattle with the 4.5. I will say that like, if the Cowboys end up moving on from McCarthy this year, like
Yep,
I think the two probably like guys I would be interested in most would be, I mean, Belichick's there
of course, right?
for in terms of like defensive, like as a defensive guru, you kind of hope that that's kind of what's played the Cowboys recently.
Yep,
But then Ben Johnson is the other one just to try to like get
yeah,
like like if we could get someone with an offensive mind to kind of come in and run the offense. Ben Johnson is kind of the guy that I would be interested in. I was kind of glad that he didn't take the commander job because I thought, maybe he's kind of holding out for the Cowboys
right.
job. Like you kind of wonder he's
Could
not
be.
taking that one, you know.
That was my thought too, is like he has a job in mind
hmm
that didn't come open, and so that's why he decided. I look, he was on my list for the Saints if the Saints moved on from Allen,
Right.
for sure. Um,
We'll see if Kubiak joins the list of head coaches to be if he had
I
one bad
mean,
week, he could
that's
bounce
what I'm saying.
back.
If he does what he did in week 1 and 2, he will not be back with the Saints as OC. He'll be
Right.
offense coordinator somewhere. All right, let's move on to our locks slash upsets. So let's start with the Georgia's getting upset special here.
This is not good. Worlds are colliding. George is getting upset.
You are going Bucks over Eagles.
Yeah, I'm cursing
Right.
myself here.
Okay.
But like I'm sure the Eagles fans, if they find this, will be furious. But I'm going based on the fact
Yeah.
that
I mean,
the Bucks beat them in the playoffs last year, so they kind of like at least
Right.
probably have an idea of how to handle Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
defensively. They've got Bowles still. They're going to be able. They probably have an idea how to defend that. And then if if Philly is without Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, like
Right.
what are your receiving options there? You could just, like
Right.
who's the guy that they traded for from Washington this year? Like,
Oh, Jahan Dotson.
yeah, Jahan
Yeah.
Dotson, you're going to be your
Yeah.
number one option. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy that as a viable offense.
Well, I mean, again, and they have Dallas Goddard too.
Right.
But again, free advice to Tampa Bay: just put somebody on them. Like,
Don't well also don't run into each other.
don't run
I
into
would
each other.
that's a
And also too, we didn't really talk about this, but like Nick Sirianni, his game management not the best.
not
Like,
great.
not great. Yeah.
I know
Uh,
everyone. Well,
something to keep an eye on.
right. And I
Yeah.
would say Nick Sirianni is like the personification of Philadelphia sports fandom.
Yep.
It's like Philadelphia sports
Yep.
fandom like became a person,
Right.
and that's him. Like it's
Yeah. I don't disagree. My upset special I mentioned earlier, I'm going Colts over Steelers just because, like I said, Steelers got to lose at some point. Weird things can happen in Indianapolis.
it's also
So
like it's Richardson. He's a high variance player, so like
right.
against the Texans, he hit some of those deep throws. Like he threw 60, like a 65-yard pass in the air. Like if he hit some of those, then like
I
that's
will
their route
say,
to victory.
I will say, heaven forbid something happens to Richardson. Do you know who the Colts backup is?
I knew this at some point. Hold on.
It's Super Bowl winner Joe Flacco.
That's right.
So, and you know Joe Flacco knows how to beat the Steelers. So
Joe
just throwing it out there.
Flacco, elite at collecting checks in the
Listen,
NFL.
man, he's like we gotta land on who the Forrest Gump of NFL quarterbacks is. Flacco might be in contention for that. Okay, and then the Jerry, it's a lock.
Jerry, it's a lock. Kramer, you've had this thing under control for almost 3 years now.
You're going Chiefs Chargers, Chiefs over Chargers, dependent on Herbert's injury.
Yeah, and I will say if Herbert ends up playing, I'll probably end up switching that to Seattle.
Okay, Seattle over the Lions.
No, Seattle. No, not Seattle. No, Jets over Broncos. That's it.
Okay, which is Jets over Broncos is mine.
Okay.
It yeah, I was gonna say if you do, that was the only one I really felt great about. Like I almost went Niners over Patriots, but like I just feel like that feels like a thing where if I did it, Patriots are gonna win the game somehow. Like, I don't
Right.
know. It feels weird. But yep, so that's our upsets and our locks for the week. I think that about wraps it up for us. Got anything else to tell the fine folks before we sign off?
No, I think that's it for the week. It's been a good first episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to next week. Looking forward to talking some more football with you next week.
Yeah, catching up on I'm probably kids are out of town for the week, so probably end up catching up on some shows. May try to
Nice.
slam in some House of Dragon, try to get it caught up on season 2. So,
Well, you have fun with that. But
all right.
till then, happy football, everyone.
All right.